Welcome to the Note Nuggets podcast, where you can learn how to become the bank, build wealth, and accumulate streams of income perfect for your savings or IRAs. You'll hear from industry experts, seasoned veterans, and everyday investors. Our goal is to teach you how to invest in notes, one nugget of knowledge at a time. Here's your host, Kevin Galang.
Welcome to another episode of the Note Nuggets podcast, where you learn how to turn other people's debt into income for your savings or IRA. Today's nugget is about foreclosures. Foreclosures get talked about a lot in the note investing space because it's one of the most powerful tools note investors have in the event the borrower defaults. It's a means of protecting your investment as the lender if you've secured your loan with some type of collateral. This collateral can be cars, trucks, cattle, luxury watches, or homes. As long as the collateral is at least equal to the amount of money you loaned out to the borrower, it can protect your investment. And a foreclosure is a way of taking back said collateral if the borrower was ever to stop paying for whatever reason. Typically, when note investors talk about foreclosures, it's implied that you're talking about foreclosing on a borrower's home who has defaulted. I mentioned earlier that foreclosures are talked about a lot, and that's because it can be quite an intricate process as well as a nuanced process. These intricacies vary by the state, and some foreclosure processes are faster than others, while some are cheaper than others. Typically, foreclosures can be categorized as judicial or non-judicial, and that's what our guest will talk about today. Some states are non-judicial while others are judicial. If you need specifics on how foreclosures work in the given state where you're buying notes, I highly recommend asking a local real estate attorney who specializes in foreclosures in that area. Today, our guest will break down what the difference is between a judicial and non-judicial foreclosure. But first, let's learn about our guest. Sean Yesner has been an attorney since 1998, practicing mostly in the areas of real estate law, consumer law, and bankruptcy primarily, and he can practice in any state or federal court in Florida. Sean is the host of the Crushing Debt podcast, which is available on all podcast players, and the author of Crushing Debt, 9 Strategies to Eliminate Financial Bullies, which is available on Amazon. You can reach Sean at sean@yesnerlaw.com for any deep dive foreclosure questions. And I know that Florida is a judicial foreclosure state, but why is it so cumbersome and like headache worthy, if you will, to foreclose in Florida?
Probably my fault. Me and my peers. So the issue with Florida is a judicial state. So the difference is you've got non-judicial states and you've got judicial states. Judicial state just means you need a judge. You need to file a lawsuit and you have a judge. Non-judicial is all done by statute. Those are states where, so one of the other things is Florida is a lien theory state. There are other states that are title theory states. So what that means, in a lien theory state, I own my house. The bank has a lien on it. That's it. But I own the house. A lot of times I'll talk to somebody and especially we were talking before about bankruptcies. And one of the questions I need to ask in terms of a bankruptcy is, do you own your house? And so I'll ask that question. And it happened yesterday. The guy said to me, no, I don't. The bank does. I said, well, you live in Florida, right? He said, yes. And I said, then you own your house. So you own your house. The bank just has a lien on it versus a title theory state. The bank owns the house until you pay it off. Once you pay it off, the bank sends you the title. Most judicial states are going to be lien theory states. Most non-judicial states are going to be title theory states, but that's not a perfect analogy either. So the reason it takes a while in Florida, number one, we've got our rules of civil procedure. So once the case is filed, the defendant has to be served. And so maybe it takes a process server, a couple weeks to find all the defendants. So there's 2-3 weeks right out of the gate. Florida rules of civil procedure say you got 30 days, 20 to 30 days, depending on who the law firm is, who the bank is, 20 days minimum to respond to the lawsuit. Typically, attorneys will file a motion for extension of time. And a funny story, when I was first starting out, in working with investors, I went to a local RIA meeting, a local Real Estate Investor Association meeting, and one of the old timer investors was trying to throw me for a loop. It was like one of those My Cousin Vinny moments. He was trying to throw me for a loop, and he's like, well, the state that I'm from, they have this motion called I don't even remember what the title of this stupid motion was. And I said, well, I'm sorry, I don't quite know exactly. Describe what I don't understand it by title. Describe what that motion does. And he said, well, it's a motion that we file to get more time to respond to the complaint, the lawsuit. I'm like,
Okay.
oh, yeah, we have those in Florida. He goes, well, what are they called in Florida? I said, motion for extension of time to respond to the complaint. No fancy names. That's what it's called. So, but a lot of attorneys will file that and get an extension of time. Florida now also has had for a while a mediation process. And I think for people in your situation, private investors, mediation is a fantastic thing. If you go to the podcast, you will hear me railing about the Florida mediation process. It is not mediation. You think of normal mediation, you have one party starts with one point of view, the other party starts with an opposite point of view. The job of the mediator is to get them to meet somewhere in the middle. That's not what a Florida foreclosure mediation is like. A Florida foreclosure mediation is, do you qualify for a loan modification? Yes or no. That's it. But the mediation process will also slow down the foreclosure. The next step in the foreclosure process, the bank will file what's called a motion for summary judgment or motion for final judgment. They have to provide the motion and all supporting affidavits at least 30 days prior to the hearing. Well, that's now where the overcrowded court system comes in. So you call today for a hearing and you may not have any time on the judge's calendar for 2, 3, 4 months. And so now you schedule the time on the calendar, you file all your motions. The standard for a motion for summary judgment is that there are no issues of fact and the bank is entitled to its judgment as a matter of law. Well, as the defense attorney, all I have to do is prove that there's an issue of fact. If I prove there's an issue of fact, I win. Now, winning that summary judgment hearing as the defense lawyer doesn't mean I win the case. Doesn't mean your case is dismissed. All it means is that you don't get your judgment. So then you would schedule it for a trial. And then we would have a trial. And if I'm now the plaintiff attorney, the bank attorney, I would bring you in as the note holder. You would have to testify in front of the judge in order for us to get. And if it took 3-4 months to get a hearing in front of the judge, imagine how long it's going to take to get trial time in front of the judge. So that's why Florida foreclosures take a long time.
All right. While the breakdown between judicial and non-judicial can be really simple, the process of actually foreclosing can be quite complicated, which is why I advocate going directly to a local real estate attorney for any foreclosure questions in that specific area. To get access to my full interview with Sean Yesner, head over to notenuggets.com/foreclosure-types. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the Note Nuggets podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the show to get access to additional weekly value nuggets and get notified with episode updates. To subscribe, all you have to do is head over to subscribe.notenuggets.com. If you have any questions about this episode or note investing, book a time on Kevin's calendar at contact.notenuggets.com. We'll see you next week with another note nugget to add to your tool belt.